There are a couple of dedicated habit tracker plugins available for Obsidian, but none of these have ever worked the way I want them to. Basically, I just want to be able to have a couple of habits that I track on my daily note every day, and a way to see my streaks and data visually as part of my quarterly review process. So over the years, I've been forced to craft my own habit tracking workflow inside of Obsidian, and I've made an accompanying habit tracking dashboard that I've set up in Canvas so that I can visualize my habit tracking data. And in this video, I'm gonna walk you through setting up the same workflow for yourself using daily notes and a couple of community plugins. Now, before we get to the workflow itself, let's talk briefly about habits in general. Personally, I believe that habits are more important than goals because when it comes to long-term achievement and results, consistency is more important than intensity. If you can do just a little bit every day, that will always produce more in the long run than the occasional heavy lift. So I try to consistently take action on things that are both important but not urgent, like writing, reading, and planning the next day. Those are the three habits that I'm trying to crease, and those are the ones that I'll use in the example workflows in this video. Now, most habit tracking apps are built on the don't break the chain concept, which is popularized by comedian Jerry Seinfeld. And just in case you haven't heard this yet, the story goes something like this. Seinfeld was approached by a young comic after a show once and was asked, "What do I need to do to become a great comedian?" Seinfeld responded by telling the aspiring comic that the way to become a great comedian was to write great jokes. So he should get a big wall calendar and put a big red X on every day where he wrote new material. After a while, you'll have a chain, and at that point, your only job, he said, is to not break the chain. There is something motivating about seeing those streaks continue to grow. And while lots of apps and plugins have ways to track and visualize those streaks, I wanted something simple that I could track easily from inside my daily note in Obsidian. Now, my workflow is optimized to remove friction when tracking the habits. So if that's what you're optimizing for, then this workflow may be for you. Here's how to set it up for yourself and start tracking habits in Obsidian from your daily note. First, you need to set up the habits that you want to track as tasks inside of your daily note template. So the first thing to do is to make sure that you have the Daily Notes core plugin enabled. Then go to the Daily Notes setting and select the template file that you want to use when you create a new daily note in Obsidian. This will eliminate the need to manually add the checkboxes every single time. And if you want a starting point, I've actually included the Daily Notes template file from this video inside of my free starter vault, which you can download at practicalpkm.com/vault. Next, you need to configure that template file. Now, I've got a lot going on in this example, but I'm going to focus just on this section here that I use for habit tracking. Now, to track habits on your daily note, all you really need are the checkboxes and the task names. In this example, I have 3 habits that I'm currently tracking: writing, reading, and planning. But instead of just leaving these as normal task bullets inside of my daily note file, I've put them inside of a custom callout. Now, you can create a callout by using the greater than sign, a space, and then the callout code and title. The callout code is inside of square brackets, and the type of callout is indicated by using an exclamation mark and then the callout name. There are a bunch of built-in callouts like info, warning, and success, which you can view by right-clicking on the code icon in the upper right of the callout when in edit mode, and just select the callout type that you want to use. But the one that I'm using here is actually a custom callout, which takes a little bit more to set up. We'll get to that in a second, but first, let's finish talking through this callout. So we've got the callout type set to habits, which I'll walk through setting up in a second. But then you'll see a plus icon right after the callout type before the title. This tells Obsidian to make this callout a collapsible callout, and the plus character indicates that this collapsible callout should be open by default. If you prefer that your callout be closed by default, just use a minus character here instead. Now, the last thing on the first line is the callout title. In this case, it's habits. And that's the text that will appear at the top of the callout in our daily note when we create it. Now, to nest the tasks inside the callout, all we need to do is add a greater than character and a space on each line below that we want to include in the callout. There are 3 tasks here on 3 separate lines, so each line has to have the greater than character and space added, otherwise the task will just appear outside the callout. Now the first line that doesn't start this way tells Obsidian this is where the callout should end. Okay, so that's how the callout works. Now let's go look at how we set up this custom callout. The custom callouts that I have are configured using a community plugin called Callout Manager. To create a custom callout in Callout Manager, go to the Obsidian settings and open the Callout Manager settings. Click on the Manage Callouts button and you'll see all of the custom callouts that you have configured for the Callout Manager plugin inside of your Obsidian Vault. To create a new custom callout, you can click the plus button at the top, but I have one here configured for habits, so instead I'm going to click on the pencil icon to go edit the settings for this particular custom callout. Now here you can see a couple of things about this callout. First, you see the name, which I've set as habits. Using that name when we create a custom callout tells Obsidian to load up that callout class. Next, we have the color. I'm using orange, but if you want to change this, you can select from the list or click on the color and choose one from the color picker interface. Next is the icon. Clicking on this shows all of the available icons that we can use at the beginning of our custom callout. You can search the icons by clicking up here and typing text in the bar. And in this case, I'm using the lucid-atom icon. When I think of habits, I tend to think of Atomic Habits by James Clear, so I feel like this icon really represents what this callout is all about. Once you've set the name, the color, and the icon, you can close the settings, and you can now call this custom callout whenever you create a note with a callout in it. Okay, so now we've got our template set up, we've got our custom callout configured, so when we create a new daily note, we can simply go to the habits callout and check the boxes for the habits when we complete them. But we still don't have a way to visualize that data like a lot of habit tracking apps provide. So for this, we're gonna need another community plugin called Tracker. This plugin gives you a bunch of ways to visualize data in your daily notes. I also use this plugin for my daily questions journaling workflow that I walk through in this other YouTube video, so click here if you want to see that entire workflow. But for now, to install Tracker, just go to the Community Plugins directory, install and enable the Tracker plugin, and then go to the Tracker settings and make sure that it's pointed at your Daily Notes folder and that the date formatting is the same as what you use for your Daily Note files. Once that's done, we can start building our dashboard. Now for the dashboard, we're going to use some tracker codes that can be added to really any Obsidian note. But as I mentioned in this other video on setting up dashboards in Obsidian, I prefer to do this now in Canvas by creating cards and dropping the tracker codes in there. This allows me to have more control over the layout of the charts and the data that it shows me. So I've actually set up a habit tracking dashboard canvas that has 3 blocks, one for each habit that I'm currently tracking in Obsidian. Now each block has 2 code snippets, one that shows the streak in a monthly calendar view, and below that, one that shows the numerical streak data. Let's look at the calendar view snippet first. So here's the code that I use for this, and I'll talk through how I set this all up. The first line is the standard 3 backticks and then the word tracker, and this tells Obsidian that this is a code block and that it should use the tracker plugin to render everything that you're going to see here. The next line is search type : and then task.done. And this tells Tracker that it should look for data that matches specific criteria. In this case, it's tasks that are completed. Now the second line is search target : writing, which tells Tracker that it should look for tasks that are named writing. And that matches the writing habit that we have set up in our daily note template. Now the next line is dataset name : writing. And this just tells the calendar to use writing at the top of the calendar view. The next line is start date : and then the date January 1st in the year month day format. Now you don't really need this, but this can limit the amount of data that the Tracker plugin has to search through. So if your charts are taking a while to load, you might want to consider adding this in. The next line is simply month : which indicates that the data should be displayed in a monthly calendar view, and the nested line below that is start week on : and then the 3-letter abbreviation for Monday inside of single quote marks. And this tells Tracker that Monday should be the first day of the week displayed on the calendar. And then finally, the last line has 3 backticks. That indicates the end of the code block. Now, when this code block is rendered, it shows a colored dot for each day where we completed our writing habit. And these dots are linked together to indicate a chain or a streak. and the days where we didn't complete the habit are left blank. This makes it easy to see visually what days we completed our habits and which days we missed. And this gives us a general sense for how consistent we've been. But there are a few other data points that I find helpful, so I've actually got another code block below this, which shows my longest streak, my longest break, and the length of the current streak. So here's the code snippet for this block, and again, let's talk through how to set this all up. Now the first part is actually exactly the same. The first line is 3 backticks and then the word tracker. The second line is search type : task.done to show the completed tasks. The third line is search target : writing to show only the writing tasks. And the fourth line is start date : in the same January 1st date in the year month day format. But the next part is where things get interesting. So the fifth line is just the word summary followed by a colon. And then the indented line below that indicates what data should show up in that summary. That line starts with the word template and a colon, and then all the data that we want in our summary enclosed in double quotes. The first part here is just the text longest streak, and that's followed by a colon and a space. But then we have double curly brackets around the text max streak and an open and close parentheses. That's the code that will pull the number for the longest streak out of the data that we told Tracker to look at. Then after that, we have plain text again for day or days, and then the letter N, which tells the Tracker plugin to go to a new line. Immediately after that N character, we repeat the same code format for longest breaks, followed by a colon, and then max breaks, followed by an open and close parentheses inside of double curly brackets to grab the number of our longest break or days in a row where we didn't complete our habit. Now after that number token, again, we have a space and the word day or days, followed by an N for a new line. And then again, we have a third line, which includes the text current streak, which is followed by a colon, then current streak followed by an open and close parentheses inside of double curly brackets to grab the number of the streak in our data. And that is followed by the text for day or days. And this is all enclosed in double quotes. And the last line again is 3 backticks to indicate the end of the code block. All right, so that's a lot of technical code, but here's what the workflow actually looks like. At the end of the day, when I'm doing my daily journaling, I make sure that I log my habits by simply tapping the boxes to check off the tasks in Obsidian on my iPhone. Now, if you use Obsidian tasks, you might get a warning that pops up about not being able to accurately mark tasks as done if you're not in preview mode. So I actually use the Force Note View Mode plugin to make all my daily notes open in preview mode on my iPhone to prevent this. But when I'm logging my habits, I simply check the boxes for the ones that I've completed. It just takes a couple of seconds, and it tells Tracker that these habits were done for this day. And then when I review all of my journal entries as part of my quarterly retreat process, which if you want to dig deeper into that, I outline in this other video here, I actually look at this habit tracking dashboard to see how consistent I've been. All the data is right there, including the monthly view, my longest streak, my longest break, and my current streak. Now, one thing you may have picked up on here is that I only track a couple of habits at a time. I don't bother tracking habits for things that are firmly established in my morning or evening routines, like stretching every morning or writing in my journal every evening. At this point, those things happen automatically, and tracking them just adds more friction to the workflow. The couple of habits that I'm focused on improving are the ones that show up in my daily notes template so that I can track them using the workflow that I've outlined in this video and look at the data as part of my personal retreat process. All right, so there you have it. That's how I track habits in Obsidian. And if you want to download and use the template that I walked through in this video, it's part of my starter vault, which you can download for free by going to practicalpkm.com/vault. The starter vault also includes a bunch of other templates as well as additional resources and tips to help you make more of your notes and ideas in Obsidian. And if you like this video, you'll probably love my newsletter, Practical PKM. The newsletter goes out every Monday morning and includes an original essay about how to apply more intention to your PKM system so you can be more productive and creative, a link to something cool that is usually Obsidian related, and my mind map book notes from a book that I've read recently. You can sign up for the newsletter for free by going to practicalpkm.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in another video.